Thanks very much. So, as mentioned here, I'm the CTO at Juice Mobile, and I'm here to talk about our data journey. Now, our data journey is very much intertwined with our cloud journey, so you're going to hear me bouncing back and forth between the two, and I only have a few minutes here, so I'm going to try to make it quick. I'm going to talk really fast. My apologies, but there's a lot of content to get through. So I'll just briefly touch on, speaking of journeys, my cloud journey. So that really began at Shomi. Shomi was a video streaming service that some of you might be aware of. Basically, back in 2014 is when we started in a colo facility, and we quickly outgrew that facility. We were doing in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 petabytes of data streaming a month. So nothing to sneeze at, and we literally exhausted the capacity of the data center. So we had to make a change. I was skeptical, about AWS because I'd never done any work in it. But we had somebody on the team who had, and they had a successful transition at a previous company, so we believed in them. We bought in, and we said, you know what, we're going to go with it. Let's give it a try. So we did. So Shomi was a company that started colo, transitioned into the cloud, and there were no limits, literally. We used to be up at all times of the night dealing with outages. We had to go through weekends sometimes. Once we migrated to AWS, a full lift and shift, that just disappeared. So if any of you are facing those kinds of challenges, I strongly encourage you, give AWS a try. You're not going to regret it. Now, Juice, once Shomi basically shuttered, I was looking for my next opportunity, so I figured I'd branch out and try ad tech, right? Why not? But I was looking for a company that was born in the cloud that got it. Shomi was a painful transition because people didn't really understand. They had this mental barrier, and they thought that they couldn't migrate to the cloud for various reasons. I've heard all the excuses, trust me, whether it's the CapEx, OpEx, justification and argument, whether it's the control needed to be in our own data center argument. These are all, frankly, non-arguments. They go away, whether you're talking about security, whether you're talking about Patriot Act. I've heard them all, trust me, I've been around long enough. So those arguments go away if you're willing to give it a try. That's the key. You need to be willing to give it a try. So Juice got it. They understood the benefits of the cloud, and they were born in the cloud. But when I came aboard, and it was really earlier this year, they were using the standard services. They were using EC2, they were using S3, they were using CloudFront, but they hadn't really branched out to take advantage of the managed services. So there was an opportunity within the data team. The data team basically, by the Q2 timeframe, I'm going to be just frank about it, it imploded. It was a small team to begin with, about 6 people. That includes product, analysts, and engineers. And we had to get to the task of basically rebuilding that team. So, sad puppies. The system itself that was designed was not scalable. It was extremely fragile and it was not meeting the needs of the business today, and it certainly wouldn't scale to the future. And there was no real data roadmap. There was no data strategy. So there was a number of things, a number of work that had to be done. So we got to the task of building the team. I thought, we needed certain capabilities in terms of the resources that we were going to hire. I thought we needed an architect, a data architect, a big data architect. Turns out, as I also directed the team to evaluate AWS services, I said, listen, give them a try. Based on the experience at Shomi, there's something really incredible and something special here. Give those data services a try. Try to build a big data platform first using those services, run some POCs, do some evaluation work. By the time we had really started looking for an architect, they'd already blown through the design phase and already into implementation with a team basically 2 to 3. That's it. So they were moving much faster than anticipated. So at the end of the day, we rehired the team, we rebuilt it, but we had no data architect, no big data architect, and we had no technology director on the team. One of the members of the team basically was able to stand out and took the leadership role, but they were an engineer by trade. They were a senior data engineer that became the lead of the team. So they filled that role. So we rebuilt the team. It was a much happier team because we weren't dealing with outages. We weren't dealing with all this other sort of nonsense that keeps people up at night. We weren't dealing with a platform that was built out of popsicle sticks and glue. We were starting to find stability where there was no stability. We had outages that were happening weekly at one point. There were limits around the type of report that could be run. The most complex that we had took about 24 hours to completely run because it was a complex query. We had limitations on look-back windows, basically limitations up the wazoo. So there were a number of things that we were having to consider. We had to consider our resources and the subject matter expertise that was required to build a big data platform. We had to consider costs. Under everything, whether it was resources or whether it was the services themselves, cost was a factor. So we couldn't be more expensive than what we were already paying. And we ended up realizing through that process that we didn't need what we thought we needed. But we didn't realize that. We didn't come to that realization until we'd gone through it. So basically, we needed to do an awful lot with very little, and that's where AWS came in to help. So we took an AWS-centric approach. We had a lot of support from our AWS TAM and solutions architects. They helped us design the system because we were not experts in the AWS services. We didn't know about Kinesis. We didn't know about Redshift. We didn't know about Lambda at Edge, let alone Lambda itself. Well, I had some experience back at Shomi, but the team didn't. So basically, through all this disruption, within about a 6-month time frame, we have a big data platform. It's going to be ready and operational within the next, basically, month and a half. And this was all done with a very reasonable team of 6. And I like to use the analogy, you kind of, once you get it and once you start using AWS, you go from riding a bicycle to driving a rocket ship. And I'm not kidding around, it really feels like that. And the folks that have used AWS services kind of get it. This is just a preview of our platform. So we're using a number of the data services here. We're using Lambda at Edge because we're collecting all kinds of metrics. We have 2 basically big data pipelines or streams. We have Lambda happening there, exercising on the streams. We have permanent storage. We have things being pushed over into Redshift, which is our data warehouse. Then, of course, our BI tool of choice is Tableau, which a lot of folks here might use as well if they have a data team. There's a few other components next to it. So just a few of the numbers. I'm going over my time, my apologies. There was significant storage benefits through the compression of Redshift. We saw about 40% savings there. The expensive query that took about 24 hours to run now took a few minutes. The system costs, one of the best things. This thing cost us the equivalent of 1 senior headcount. That's it, all in. We're talking about bandwidth, we're talking about requests, we're talking about storage, we're talking about all the services costs, that's it. And the team that had not had almost any experience with these services built it. They built it and they learned from the AWS team that basically trained them. And if you look, it's still a team of 6. But the highlighted portion of that team, there's 3 engineers. 1 is a systems engineer, 2 are data engineers, and the other half of the team are analysts and a product owner. That's it. I don't have a massive team in the background hiding behind the wall, behind a curtain. That's the team. They designed it, they learned how to use it, and they built it. And it's going to be ready very soon. So it's pretty serious stuff that we're dealing with here. Because I've seen big data platforms cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the organizational needs. So basically, with a small team in AWS, you could run and manage massively scalable infrastructure end-to-end with a small cross-functional team. You don't necessarily need big data expertise, although the team had data expertise, but just not in the traditional ecosystem of Hadoop, Hive, Pig, Scoop, all the rest of that kind of stuff. Very cost-effective, flexible design. We're in AWS, but we can replace any of those components at any time. So this is basically the start of our journey. We've laid the foundation, and we're not done, but the future is bright. And when you know you're on the right path, you just kind of know it. It feels right, and we're on that right path. So that's it for me today. Feel free to come by. Some members of the team, 50% of the team is here, all 3 of them. So feel free to talk to them as well. And that's it. Thanks.
Questions?
Oh, yes, questions.
Just had a question. How difficult would it be for you to switch cloud providers, or are you just totally going to stick with AWS no matter what?
Yeah, it's a good question. The data platform is entirely AWS, but we have 2 other products that have been completely containerized, and we're looking at fleet orchestration and management like Kubernetes. That's going to allow us to span multiple providers if we want to. However, we don't have a need right now. I understand the risk. Some folks are concerned about that. But in all my time using AWS, again, 2014, we've never been concerned with that. You can go multi-AZ, of course, which is already baked into a lot of the services. You can go multi-region, which gives you, again, redundancy across geographically disparate zones. And you have connectivity across the globe. So if you're a business that needs to scale to the other side of the planet, you get that with AWS with an extremely fast network. So we've not limited ourselves, and I've seen this before, and some folks have asked me before about, putting all your eggs in one basket. What I didn't realize at the time was when we were in a data center, you had your eggs in a basket anyway. You just didn't realize it. You're already limited. You're in a physical cage. And once you kind of break out of that mindset, you realize what's beyond it, a world of possibilities opens up. It truly does. Anyone else? The other analogy I'll use is, speaking of the mental cage, you've all seen The Matrix, right? You got the blue pill, you got the red pill. Take the red pill.
Thank you.